Welcome to our channel. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this story. Let's begin.
I tricked my cheating wife into thinking I was cheating on her, then vanished like a ghost and handed her divorce papers on Christmas. Hope you've got some time because this is going to be a long one. The events I'm about to share span from late 2019 onward, and per the rules, names have been changed. Backstory. My wife had been my high school sweetheart. We started dating in 1992, when we were both 17. Now we're both 45, and we'd been together ever since. She was the only woman I had ever been with. We got married 5 years later, at 22, right after graduating college. A year later, our first of 2 sons was born. I gave her 23 years of my life. I built us a home. I worked my butt off to give her the life she dreamed of. Sure, we had rough patches. What couple doesn't? But even in the worst times, we found ways to work things out and came out stronger. That's why her affair hit me like a freight train. It started in March 2020. I'd been recovering from knee surgery, tore my ACL in fall 2019, and at that point my knee was only about 55% functional. I couldn't get around well, and it impacted a lot of things at home. I was on workers' comp since the injury happened at work and couldn't do my usual chores. Our sons helped where they could, but there were certain things only I could do, and those got pushed onto her, which she wasn't happy about. Our sex life, which had already been dwindling before my injury, basically stopped altogether. During those months, Sue, let's call her Sue, started spending more and more time with her coworkers after work. From November 2019 through March 2020, this became the norm. At first, I didn't think much of it. In 23 years together, I had never had a reason to doubt her. We had our own friends as well as mutual ones. I'd often go out with my friends, and it had never been an issue. But by January 2020, I noticed something was off. Sue was pulling away. We had our problems, sure, but she had never refused me a hug or a kiss before. Now she stopped altogether. Her phone was always in her hand, which wasn't unusual. She'd always show me funny memes, Pinterest ideas, recipes, but suddenly she stopped sharing anything with me. She got secretive about her phone, and her tone with me became sharp, like I was bothering her. Then March 2020 hit. The pandemic began and New York shut down. Both of our jobs were considered essential, so we didn't work from home. I had just been cleared to go back to work after 5 months of recovery, and I was eager to get back. Being stuck at home, unable to be physically active, had been driving me nuts. I'm into martial arts, go to the gym 4 times a week, and I'm usually very active around the house. A week or 2 into lockdown, Sue told me she'd have to stay late at work. Given the nature of her job, I figured it might happen every now and then. Nope, this was every day. And not just for an hour or 2. She'd get home more than 3 hours late, head straight for the shower, spend a little time with me, a little with our 17-year-old son, our 22-year-old lives with his girlfriend, and then head to bed. As my knee improved, we started having sex again, but she was checked out emotionally and mentally. I could feel it. By early April, the picture was becoming clearer. All the signs pointed to an affair. That's when I decided I needed answers.
I started Googling what to look for if your spouse is cheating. Found a list of common signs. Sue checked nearly all the boxes. So I dug deeper. First stop, her social media. Looking at her Facebook posts from the last few months, everything seemed normal. Pictures of us with the boys, photos with her friends, and some group shots from her after-work hangouts. In several of those after-work photos, there was one guy I didn't recognize. And in every single picture where he appeared, he was way too close to her. His arm on her shoulder, hand on her lower back. Too close for comfort, especially since I'd never even met him. Turns out, This guy was on her Facebook friends list and followed her on Instagram. I tried looking at his Facebook profile, but guess what? He had me blocked. Why the hell would a guy I don't know block me yet still be friends with my wife? Yeah, that's when I went full Batman mode. By this point, I wasn't in denial anymore. I knew she was cheating with him. Now I needed to find out how long it had been going on. In April and May, I started digging hard. We had a family cell plan, so I was able to access our call logs. From October 2019 to April 2020, the two numbers she contacted most were mine and a number I didn't recognize. A quick Google search confirmed it. Yep, the mystery man from the photos. Let's call him the dirtbag. Now the picture was crystal clear. But most of their text threads were fragmented, meaning she was deleting some of them. I knew she was cheating, but I wanted undeniable proof. That's when I told my best friend, Ozzy, what I'd found. He asked if I'd confronted her yet. Nope, I didn't have enough in my mind. Then he told me about an app I could install to spy on her messages in real time. I installed it, synced it to our cell plan, and waited. Within days, I got the smoking gun, messages between her and the dirtbag talking about how much fun they'd had the night before and how they couldn't wait to do it again that weekend. Gut punch. For the next 2 days, I was a wreck. I kept my distance from her, which she noticed. She tried asking what was wrong, tried to comfort me, but I brushed her off. I couldn't even look at her, knowing I'd given her 23 years of my life and she'd thrown it away for a guy only 5 years older than our oldest son. On the third day, my sadness turned into rage. I told Ozzy the proof was in and that I wasn't just going to divorce her, I wanted to destroy her life completely. While researching affairs online, I'd stumbled on a quote that stuck with me. The enemy of infidelity is unpredictability. That became the foundation of my plan. By June, I still had the app running, collecting as much data as possible every night. Their messages made it clear they were in a full-blown relationship. Sexting, romantic notes, nude pics, the whole package. At that point, I stopped reading their exchanges. I just copied and archived them to a private server. Meanwhile, I started doing things out of character. I'd leave the house at odd hours. I'd come home even later than she did. I'd be glued to my phone in her presence, and if she asked what I was doing, I'd just say, work stuff, and put it away. I also changed the logins to all my accounts so she couldn't access anything. For context, throughout our entire marriage, we'd never hidden anything from each other. But shortly after her affair began, she'd changed her Facebook and phone passwords, claiming it was for security reasons. Yeah, sure, great cover for hiding an affair. I let Ozzy in on my plan. I also told my older sister and 2 of my closest friends, Joey and Nina. These are people I'd trust with my life. I made them swear to keep it secret. For the record, Nina and Sue were never close. I met Nina my freshman year of high school, 2 years before I met Sue, and she's always been my closest female friend. From day one, Sue saw her as a threat. Nina, for her part, never liked Sue much. She once told me that early in my relationship with Sue, she noticed how Sue pushed her way into my friend group while I never did the same with hers. By July, Sue was paranoid. She started texting and calling me more often, asking where I was and when I'd be home. The seed of doubt I'd planted a month earlier was growing. She even told the dirtbag she was worried I might be cheating on her. The irony of my cheating wife worrying that I might be cheating on her? Priceless. Of course, I wasn't cheating at the time. When I left the house, I was either at Ozzy's or Joey's, having drinks, watching fights, or hanging out at my sister's place. Fast forward to October, things escalated. I'd been in my fake affair for 3 months. I hadn't touched her. No hugs, no kisses, no sex since the day I launched my plan. Not that she needed it, she was still hooking up with the dirtbag, just at his place or in motels now. Then, on October 20th, 2020, She called me at work asking me to come straight home, said she had something important to talk about. I half expected her to confess. Nope. Instead, she asked if I was unhappy with her. She pointed out that I was spending too much time away, showing her no affection, and that our sex life had vanished. She said she was worried I was pushing her away because of how she treated me during my knee recovery. And then, the kicker, she asked me if I was cheating on her. I collapsed on the floor laughing, full-on Joker laugh, tears streaming down my face. From her perspective, I was laughing at the idea of cheating. In reality, I was laughing at the absurd irony, my cheating wife accusing me of infidelity. When I finally stopped laughing, I looked her in the eyes, shook my head without answering, kissed the top of her head, and walked away. Later that night, I checked the app. Sure enough, she was messaging the dirtbag. I know he's cheating on me. I asked him today and he just laughed in my face, literally fell on the floor laughing for 5 minutes. He doesn't care about my feelings anymore. I know I've lost him. This is karma. I smiled like the Cheshire cat. She was cracking.
By November, I hadn't softened my behavior. In fact, I doubled down. This is where Nina came into play. For context, Nina had been stuck overseas for months due to the pandemic, but finally returned to New York on November 3rd. Ozzy, Joey, and I decided to celebrate her return with dinner and drinks at Joey's place. It was just 5 of us: Ozzy, Joey and his wife, who's also Nina's sister, Nina, and me. Being the sly fox she is, Nina came up with a devilish idea. We'd take a few cozy-looking photos together, like the ones I'd seen of Sue and the dirtbag months earlier, and post them on my Facebook. So we did. 2 days later, on November 5, Sue found out. I'm guessing some mutual friends saw the photos and noticed how uncomfortably close I was to Nina. This threw her for a loop. She knew Nina had spent most of the year in Europe, so she couldn't outright accuse her of being the other woman. But she still tried to start an argument with me that night about how handsy I looked in those pictures. I saw my opening. I said, "How about those pictures of you and the dirtbag last year? He was pretty handsy too, but I didn't make a big deal about it." The shock on her face was priceless. This was the first time I'd ever mentioned him by name. You could practically hear the gears turning in her head as she tried to come up with an excuse. She finally said, "Oh, he's like that with everyone, just a friendly guy. I get how it might look, but nothing happened between us. I'm sorry if those photos upset you. I'll delete them." I replied, "It's not the photos, Sue. It's the fact that you've been sleeping with him for a year while lying to me about working late and meeting friends. That's what upset me." From that night on, she turned up the affection to an almost suffocating level. Hugging, kissing, trying to initiate sex constantly. I ignored her at every turn. Meanwhile, I kept archiving her messages with the dirtbag. By this point, I felt nothing for her. Whatever shred of desire I had to save the marriage had died months earlier when I launched phase 1 of my plan. Then came the turning point. She told the dirtbag she couldn't see him anymore. She said the guilt was eating her alive, that karma was suffocating her and she couldn't risk losing me. She admitted she still loved him, but was in love with me and needed to save her marriage. Too late, too little. The dirtbag flipped, telling her I didn't love her the way he did, that she was making a mistake, that she couldn't just throw away what they had. But by late November and into December, Sue was stuck in limbo, still unsure if I was actually cheating, and now dodging his messages. Meanwhile, phase 2 of my plan was complete. The divorce papers were ready. I'd found a studio apartment in the Bronx and signed a 2-year lease. I'd moved all our joint money into my personal account. I was ready for the kill shot.
Then came Thanksgiving. My oldest son and his girlfriend hosted a small dinner for close family. Her parents, her, she's an only child, Sue, me, and our younger son. The evening was great. My son's girlfriend is in culinary school and cooked everything herself. To keep up appearances, I showed Sue a little affection. Kiss on the cheek, an arm around her shoulders. She lit up from it. For context, this was the first time I'd touched her since that kiss on the top of her head back in October, nearly 2 months earlier. Truth, it disgusted me to do it, but it was necessary. Acting cold toward her in front of our sons, her parents, and her potential future in-laws would have raised questions I didn't want to answer yet. Our younger son decided to spend the night at his brother's place, so Sue and I went home alone. On the way, she thanked me for treating her so well and said, "I don't know what's going on with you, honey, but I'm here for you." I had to fight not to laugh. I just said, "I know, I just need time." That night, for the first time since spring, we had sex. My mindset was basically, screw it, might as well enjoy one last time before I erase her from my life. Let's just say, it wasn't making love. When I finished, she lay there looking confused, like she'd been hit by a truck. No cuddling, no after-talk. I just got up, showered, and went to sleep in my office. She also noticed I'd used a condom for the first time in 20 years, which clearly puzzled her, but she didn't ask questions. No way was I going to risk unprotected sex with someone who'd been sleeping with the dirtbag for months. The next morning, I checked the Spy app. For the first time in weeks, she'd messaged the dirtbag. He poured his heart out, said he loved her, that I had never rekindled the flame, that she'd been in a cage with me for 23 years and deserved someone who cherished her. She responded almost exactly as before, told him she loved him and enjoyed their time together, but couldn't lose me, that I was still the love of her life. Then she suggested they could remain friends, but their physical relationship had to end. He begged for one last time. And of course, she agreed. One more for the road. December 4th, I launched Phase 3. The divorce papers were ready, my new place was set, and I started moving my things out in small amounts so she wouldn't notice. First, I told my sons. I had both of them come into my office one evening and explained, without going into all the details, that their mother had been cheating on me for over a year and I'd be filing for divorce soon. My younger son was crushed. He'd recently been cheated on by his first girlfriend, so this was his second heartbreak in just a few months. My older son took it more calmly and offered to let his brother stay with him for a while. Once they left, the hardest part was over. Time to deploy the nuclear option. I'd been printing and organizing everything I'd collected from June. Call logs, texts, photos, emails, into chronological order. 14 binders in total. I packed them into boxes, wrapped them like Christmas gifts, and addressed them to my mom, her parents, her 2 sisters and her brother, her HR department. Oh, by the way, she and the dirtbag work together, and company policy forbids workplace relationships. Several of her friends, the dirtbag's parents, some of his friends. I mailed them all on December 16th, with delivery dates set for December 22nd to 24th. Perfect timing. Christmas Eve, the final step. I wrapped one of the remaining binders, taped the divorce papers inside the cover, added a note that said, "Merry Christmas," and left it on my side of the bed along with my old phone and my lawyer's business card. I packed 2 backpacks with the rest of my essentials and walked out of the home I'd lived in for 23 years. I haven't seen Sue since.
The packages arrived right on schedule. Sue got torn apart from every direction. Her younger sister ripped into her. Her parents were furious. My mom, who I always knew could be harsh, absolutely destroyed her verbally. She'd been desperately trying to find out where I am, but the few people who know aren't saying a word. Her Facebook is now full of posts trying to get in touch with me, probably realizing I'm watching from a distance. According to a mutual friend who works at her company, Sue and the dirtbag were both put on unpaid leave starting the next day, so it looked like she'd be starting 2021 without a job. As for my remaining 2 binders, one went to my attorney as final evidence for the divorce, the other I kept for myself to burn in Joey's fire pit when the divorce was finalized. Do I feel guilty about any of this? Not for a second. I was faithful to her for 23 years. I gave her the house she wanted, the family she wanted, the life I thought we both deserved. I never cheated, never broke my vows. Whenever we had a problem, I went to her so we could work through it. She chose another man's bed instead. The only thing I might lose in the divorce is the house, my car, and maybe a few hundred a month in alimony. But given New York's fault-based divorce laws and the mountain of evidence I'd gathered, my lawyer said it was likely she wouldn't get alimony at all. Christmas Day was my first full day in my new apartment. It's still a work in progress, but I've made it home for at least the next 2 years. My sons and my oldest's girlfriend came over, bringing home-baked sweets and dinner. My sister joined too. It was the first time in almost a year I'd seen my nephews and spent real quality time with my boys. Being surrounded by them kept me from drowning in emotions. Because honestly, if I'd been alone, I probably would have just drunk myself into oblivion. December 29th, 2020. I got a message from Nina asking if I was free that evening. Of course I was. We met at a diner near my office. Restaurants were at 25% capacity due to the pandemic, but we found a spot easily. Once we sat down, Nina laid all her cards on the table, though I'd suspected it already. She confessed she'd liked me since we were teenagers, but Sue had gotten to me first. She'd kept quiet for decades, but the feelings never went away. Now, Nina is a personal trainer and yoga instructor, a complete transformation from the goth girl she was in high school. We decided that once my divorce was finalized, we'd officially start dating. And yes, we slept together that night. Do I feel bad about it? Hell no! Nina's been a better friend to me than Sue ever was in nearly a quarter century. She's supported me through everything, and I learned she'd even stepped aside years ago to let me build a life with Sue. That kind of selflessness is rare. January 6th, 2021. My first face-to-face with Sue since disappearing on Christmas Eve. Her lawyer had set up a meeting to discuss the divorce terms. My demands: divorce on the grounds of adultery, I sell my share of the house if she wants to keep it, we each keep our own cars, I keep my cabin in Pennsylvania, no alimony due to adultery, our younger son chooses where to live, likely with me. In the meeting, Sue looked awful, completely drained. Her lawyer tried proposing reconciliation terms. I rejected them instantly. We ended up agreeing to a legal separation, leading to a no-fault divorce, with me paying her $653 a month temporarily for utilities until she found a job. Yes, she was fired over the affair, same as the dirtbag. The payments would last no more than a year, after which she'd be on her own. Outside the office, she stopped me and broke down crying, said she regretted everything, didn't mean for this to happen, and asked if we could start over someday. I told her she should start imagining life without me because this was the last time she would ever see me. I told her I loved the woman she used to be, but I hated the one standing in front of me now. Then I put in my earbuds, turned, and walked away.
Then came an unexpected twist. Since only my closest friends, my sons, my sister, and my mom had my new contact information, and Sue was blocked everywhere, she hadn't been able to reach me since I disappeared on Christmas Eve. One evening, I got a message from one of our mutual friends, one of the few who hadn't completely cut ties with her after I exposed the affair. He told me he had stopped by her place to check on her and found her in a state where she had clearly tried to harm herself. She was taken to the hospital and admitted to the intensive care unit in critical but stable condition. Her parents and both her sisters were already there. I assume the hospital had tried to call me, but my old number was still listed as her emergency contact, so they eventually reached out to family and friends instead. The friend pleaded with me to come. Her parents and her sisters also wanted me there. I told them no. I explained to my sons what had happened and said that if they wanted to go and support their mother, I wouldn't judge them. She's still their mom. But I personally was done. My responsibility toward her ended the moment we signed the separation agreement. Both my sons were a bit surprised by my answer, but they accepted it. After word spread about what had happened, some of the same people who had condemned her weeks earlier suddenly started feeling sorry for her and pressuring me to visit. They said that, despite what she had done, I should be by her side in such a difficult moment. I also heard that the dirtbag had tried to visit her that morning, but was turned away because he wasn't family. I didn't budge. I told everyone the same thing. I no longer have feelings for her, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Yes, I understand that the way I ended things, disappearing on Christmas Eve, might have contributed to her breakdown, but that was still her choice. She had been betraying me for nearly a year with a man barely older than our oldest son. And now, instead of facing the consequences, she had taken the most self-centered path possible. Whether it was a genuine crisis or a calculated move to win back sympathy from people who had just condemned her, I didn't know, and I didn't care. The bottom line was this: she chose betrayal. She put her needs above our marriage. Now, I was choosing myself.
April 13 marked the official end. Exactly a month earlier, Sue legally became my ex-wife. At first, my attorney thought the process would finish on the 18th, but because New York was easing some pandemic restrictions, everything wrapped up a few days early. On April 12, my attorney Jeff called and asked me to come in the next day. When I arrived, he handed me the final divorce decree and shook my hand. I couldn't just leave, so I hugged him and thanked him for everything he'd done for me. On the way home, my mind replayed the last 24 years. Every memory, every chapter. When I walked into my apartment, it hit me. I sank to the floor, and all the emotions I'd bottled up poured out. I hadn't cried that hard in years, but these weren't tears of sadness. My soul finally felt free after being trapped in a deep, dark place for so long. That evening, I called my oldest son to tell him it was over. He asked how I felt, probably noticing my voice sounded emotional. Then my 17-year-old got on the phone, and we talked for nearly an hour and a half. My older son and his fiancée have been taking great care of him, and he's still seeing a therapist. Later that night, Nina came over. When I told her the divorce was final, she hugged me tightly until I cried again. She whispered that no matter what happens, she will never betray me and will love me with all her heart. And I believe every word. Then something surprising happened. The dirtbag reached out to me. He had apparently stumbled across my story when it blew up online and immediately recognized himself. The first thing he did was apologize. He told me what had happened after his mother received the binder I'd mailed her. She's a devout Catholic, church 3 times a week, so when she found out her son had destroyed a marriage that lasted nearly 25 years, she was furious. She kicked him out that very day. Within a week, when his employer also received the binder, he was fired. Since then, he'd been couch surfing at friends' places, looking for work. I could have destroyed him further, but I didn't. I asked when he last saw Sue. He said months ago. The last time they spoke, she told him to forget about her and move on. At least she'd been consistent on that point. We talked for about 20 minutes. He seemed to be looking for some kind of redemption. I kept my responses short, but asked him questions. Finally, I told him,
You're a 27-year-old guy who now has to live with the fact that your own mother despises you for wrecking a marriage that lasted almost as long as you've been alive. I know you wrote to me because your conscience is eating at you, but I'm not here to give you comfort. When I was 27, I was building my future. Now you're homeless, jobless, and a home wrecker. If you're smart, you'll learn from this. If not, you'll still be a loser when I'm my age, if you make it that far. Then I blocked him. May 4th, 2021, Nina became my wife. Over the previous 2 months, we talked at length about where we wanted our relationship to go. She made it clear she didn't want to be with anyone else and wanted to share my last name. She also wanted me to adopt her baby daughter, Anna, as my own. I adore Anna. She had just turned 6 months old in April, and she absolutely lights up when she sees me. Her biological father had walked out when she was 4 months old, and she had never introduced her to any man unless she saw long-term potential. My younger son has bonded with her like a big brother, and my therapist says that's a great sign. So we went to City Hall and made it official. It took just 24 hours to get the marriage license. Our friends and family weren't surprised. Most of them had already guessed we were together. Some might say we married too quickly, and yes, I once swore I'd never marry again. But that was before Nina confessed she'd loved me for 25 years. Even back when she was married, she regretted not having the chance to be with me. She never acted on it because she didn't want to be the other woman. Over the years, she's given me so much and asked for so little. Not even the woman I married and had 2 children with ever showed me this much love. I'd be a fool not to give him my last name. We're now starting the process to make Anna legally my daughter. As for Sue, I haven't spoken to her since the last time I set foot in our old home almost 4 months ago. Through mutual friends, I know she sold the house, got an apartment near her new job. A friend of ours hired her as an admin assistant, and is keeping to herself. She's gained a little weight, avoids socializing, and rarely talks to anyone but that one friend. I thanked him for looking out for her, but told him I didn't want more updates. She's no longer my responsibility. I'm almost certain she knows about Nina and me, since some mutual acquaintances have commented on it. Once my younger son turns 18 next year, I'll have no reason to ever speak to her again. That's the end of my story.